JB here. Hope everyone's doing outstanding. Monday, February 9th, 9:18 a.m. Really quick rant, talk about the market. Some names I'll look at, go from there. S&P futures were in the green overnight, hit highs in the morning, bounced back into the red, dipped to lows at about 5:30, been chopping around, and now we're back into a reverse mode. So we'll see where we head here today. S&P futures are down about 0.3%. Nasdaq futures down 0.5%. Do we resume last week's sell-off? Was Friday just a relief bounce before the next leg? Goldman Spectacular thinks it is. They are warning of more selling for stocks this week. There's two things that are going to happen, right? Market's going to go up or they're going to go down. Well, actually, they could stay flat. But this is the same Goldman Spectacular called the recession back in the peak of the sell-off back in April. Joking aside, to me, just kind of want to see some footing. The markets, maybe the SPY gets down to 686, hopefully holds. Don't want to see things accelerate too much because it feels like last week we kind of broke this. I guess the best way to say it's the seal, right? I think we're kind of like ready for some volatility, and I just hope it doesn't continue, right? I hope that was it. We've got the software revaluation, whatever you want to call it, out of the way. Bitcoin has kind of run its course. That doesn't accelerate or resume, and yeah, we can get back to looking some names to trade for upside. I don't want to be in a situation like we had last week where I'm looking, do I nibble calls for bounces? Do I play put hedges? And then as we continue to sell, I got close to adding put hedges. And then I was looking at calls Wednesday, Thursday, and then it took me some patience Friday to finally get some strikes on. Fortunately, I missed some of the bigger moves. Like Hood, I had that on a watch list. I think it was at like $74 in the pre-market. And I'm like, oh, it's going to go to 79, all the way up to 84 at the close. That's gapping higher. Uh, yeah, all right. So just quick on overall markets. Still some catalysts this week. We have the employment, the jobs report, which was supposed to be on Friday. That's going to be Wednesday. CPI will be on Friday. We have retail sales tomorrow. There's still a decent amount of earnings this week. I think Cisco. I'm trying to think of some of the other names. AppLovin, some of those names report. And then we'll have to see, I think it was Friday I was saying. It's like we got the training wheels off the bike, right? We'll see if the bike can stay stay on its course, or is it gonna fall? So we'll find out. 686, big spot on the spot for me. If there's I always try and look at why don't I have it? Things have a little positive spin on things. At least we came down and tested at 687 on the 676 on the SPY. So that's another big spot. If we do have some bigger selling here, certainly don't want to see that. Otherwise, I think 655, and then I'll definitely have some kind of put hedges to play for some downside. But then on the other question is what names to get in. If it's not software, is going to leak into some of these other names that held up relatively well. And you look at last week, people can say it's a risk. It was a risk off into value trade, right? There's a lot of names, especially on the Dow, which Dow hit 50,000 all-time highs. Seemed like some of it was that. We'll see what happens. All right, so that's overall markets. So just quick on individual names. Only have 8 minutes here to the market open. I'm trying to get off quick, but Align. So I was watching Align on Thursday after its earnings. Wanted to play some lotto calls. Thankfully, sat on my hands. Was sitting around I think it was 174, 175 the whole morning. And then Friday morning opened up around 178 or so. I went and got some lottos. I was going to get some lottos for last week, but I figured I got some time, got some strikes into this week, and then traded slightly higher most of the day, and then spiked into the end of the session. Was able to close some of the calls out for 100%, and then as it rallied into the end of the day, it closed more out for 200%. It just got another upgrade this morning. HSBC upgraded the stock to buy from neutral. I think they took their price target to 200, somewhere in there. Sometimes upgrades don't do much for a stock. Hopefully this is not the case, but sometimes I like to see the stock trade on its own merits, and sometimes upgrades, it's almost like ruins the momentum, ruins the mojo. I don't know. Hopefully not. But it was at 190 just a little while ago. I'll probably lock a few more in at the open, depending on what those calls are. They'll probably be close to $2, I would think. And then just hold the rest. I was talking about on Friday, gap fill, 277 is the gap fill. So I'm not saying it gets there, but if it has continuation today, you got to think it will probably happen quickly. It's a great story. I posted this, if you look at the fundamentals, it's like a $16 billion company. They have $1 billion in cash. They were actively buying back stock. They bought back, I think it was 500 million in shares last year in 2025. So, I'm starting to do no, they throw off 500 million in free cash flow yearly. So I'm doing the math. If they just take that and just buy back stock, it'll be a private company in 20 years. So crazy. Like, to me, that's a fundamentally sound company where it has so much cash, doesn't know what to do with. And then the reason I think, to me, it's unwarranted, but some of the reason it's selling off is because it's growth. It was a growth story, and the growth is slowed. It's kind of muted. Single digit gains. Finally, this quarter looks like maybe a turnaround. So maybe it's the start of one of those. I used to call them IPO smash ups. This is an earnings smash up. We have a repricing of a line after its earnings report. So if it has continuation today, breaks into the low 190s, I'll probably look for some FOMO strikes, maybe 205 to 210 lottos. All right, so that's a line. Do I have my chart here? Sorry. Other names, Enphase, right? I keep talking about this one, so I'm blue in the face, and then it's probably going to continue its earnings run, and I'm going to miss the boat again. Hopefully not. I'm probably going to get some calls at the open here today. Uh, Again, energy space, right? It's one of those beaten down names. I don't know if it's down like 80% off its highs, but it's kind of like missed the radar, or I don't see it talked about too much, but their CEO bought more shares on Thursday. He owns 1 point something million shares. So for him to buy 5,000 shares doesn't seem like much. But to me, I mean, he doesn't have to do any of that, right? He could just sit on his hands like most of these CEOs do. The fact that he bought shares here, to me, I think that bodes well for more upside, especially his average, I think, is 50. What do you get on 50, 52? 51 and change, and the other person $52. I think it had $60. So don't be surprised. Finally, I pulled the trigger here. With that being said, SolarEdge, same, similar company, same sector. They report earnings February 18th. We saw what happened last earnings. I think this is the earnings that first it had the run up after its earnings from November all the way up to 48 and change, pulled back. Now it's just been chopping around in the low 30s. I think this next earnings takes it 50, 55, 60. I think I was talking about it on the last run up. It's one of those names that's going to catch fire and not stop, right? It's not going to stop $50. It's going to be 60, 70, 80, 90. And then the calls, inexpensive now, will be very expensive, and hopefully I'll be in them. All right. So that's SolarEdge. Quick on other names. I mean, I'm not going to talk about SERV Robotics. I drew my little line here on these rallies it's had, similar to SolarEdge. When this starts to get going again, and we've rode the calls in the past, I'm not going to miss it again. So I'll continue to look for opportunities to trade that one. And then other names report earnings this week, and there's so many charts that are oversold. So just because they're oversold doesn't mean it's a good time to get calls. But names that kind of catch my attention. Here's Inspire Medical. So one of my favorite names in the past, there used to be these these stimulus medical device companies. Two of them have been purchased, right? One was AXNX. They used to have, they used to stimulate the spinal cord to induce people who have pooping issues, right? That was a great company. They actually got acquired. And then the other one was SCS, I forget, but they did spine cord stimulation. Hang on one second here. Anyway, so don't be surprised. This does sleep apnea. So I don't know if they do some kind of stimulation to prevent sleep apnea, but that one's been sold off. And I don't know, more of the catalyst is GLP-1 drugs, because supposedly that, losing weight obviously helps sleep apnea. But because of that, they say GLP-1 drugs are going to be prescribed for sleep apnea. I don't know if that's the sole reason, but if you take a look, interesting name, even if it has a short-term bounce. That's that. And then the HubSpot. HubSpot's a little different. I've never traded this one before. Obviously, this is a software as a service company. So this one's been taken to the woodshed. I hate to chase names just because they've been taken to the woodshed, but take a look at that pincher. So, stock all the way at 500 and change just a couple of months ago. Anyway, have a great day. I'll be back on audio later. Rock and roll.